Welcome to the Chatty Teachers Podcast. This podcast is made for teachers by some really chatty teachers, all about the aspects of teaching that no one really talks about. I am hoping to share some laughs and some tears so that you know you are not alone in this. On this episode, I will be introducing myself and chatting about what is to come. Welcome everyone to the Chatty Teachers Podcast. I'm so excited for this finally to be happening. A little bit nervous if I am honest. This is probably the third or fourth time I've started this episode because sitting in front of a microphone like this is definitely not something that comes super naturally to me. So first of all, let me introduce myself. So my name is Karen, or Teacher Karen as the little ones in my life call me. Now since I can remember, I've always said I wanted to be a teacher. After high school, finished high school, spent a gap year in the United Kingdom in Scotland, working at a school in Edinburgh where I worked with little ones, I worked with the big kids, I coached sport, I did everything in between. And when it came for me to decide exactly what I wanted to study, I landed on a Bachelor of Education in Early Childhood Development and Foundation Phase. So I started that in 2016 at the University of Pretoria. And in my fourth year, I specialized in early childhood development. I graduated in 2019, where I then started to work at a school in Durban in 2020. And as we all know, that is the year that COVID struck. Now, let me just tell you, learning to be a teacher in a time like that is very difficult, as many of us know. But I did it. We all did it. And believe me, I really do think it made us better people and better teachers for it. I loved working in the classroom in that first term that we had before COVID struck. Being with the kids and sharing what I'd learned, and it was honestly just amazing. Now, something I did learn, and if you are studying to be a teacher or waiting to get your first job, what they teach at university is nothing like it is in the classroom. You will relearn how to be a teacher in those first few weeks of being in the classroom. But it is really so worth it. In 2021, I decided that I wanted to do my honours and to further my education. So I started my honours in inclusive education. Now, I really do not recommend doing your honours and getting married in the same year. It was horrific, but I made it work. And I came out of the year married and with an honours degree. So like I said, I did my honours in inclusive education. And it definitely made me realize the shortfalls in the education system and how inclusion is not even considered in most schools. Now, this lit a fire within me to bring inclusion to the space that I was in. And just let me tell you, I was met with walls at every turn. Mindset is so important when bringing inclusion into a space. And it is also the hardest thing to change. Now, this just made me want to work harder to prove to everyone and to myself that I could make a difference and I could change the system or change my environment or the little children's environments who I was teaching for the better. So this podcast will be all about all things education. We will talk about inclusion, learning disabilities, classroom management, classroom environments, toxic environments, learning barriers, tips, learning styles, diversity, identity, de-escalation techniques, classroom programs, and the list honestly just goes on. I have a lot to say. We will be having some really special guests joining us for this podcast. Some fellow teachers that I've met along the way. Ashley from Miss Foley's Beehive will be joining us. There will be occupational therapists, speech therapists, and many, many more. I'd like to shed a light on education that some people, most people, don't really talk about. You know, we are told a certain thing and we go into our classrooms and we do it. But if we open our horizons and we broaden the spectrum of what we're seeing, there is so much out there that we can do for those little kids that walk through the doors every day. And we have a very special guest who will be joining us for a series that I am so excited about. The series will be called Chats with an Ed Psych. Tegan will be joining us. She is an educational psychologist who has her own practice up in Johannesburg. She is currently completing her doctorate on colorblindness, and she also happens to be my really beautiful sister. I'm so excited to get perspectives and opinions from somebody like her who is so well researched in everything that she does. And I think as a teacher in a classroom, we are given enough tools to know when to refer or when to suspect that something or more intervention needs to be put in place. But we're never really given all the tools we need to actually help a child, ourselves, or help a child in our own space. So I think chatting with Tegan and getting that information will be so important and so enlightening so that you feel more empowered within your classroom. I will definitely create a question box on Instagram for any questions you might have for Tegan regarding educational psychology or any aspects around there. And I'll create another one for general topics you would like me to cover. We can talk about anything on this podcast. Like I said, I really would like to empower you as a teacher to know, to find out, to have the knowledge you need to be able to walk into your classroom every day and know that what you are doing is the right thing and what you are doing is going to change those little lives in front of you. So I'm really so excited to go on this journey and to share my love for education with you. So I've always loved podcasts. I love listening to them when I drive. I love just putting them on while I'm working around the house. It's such a great way to share information and to share a message without, being tied down to your laptop or your TV, or scrolling through your phone. It's a medium of information that we can just pop in our ears and, utilize in time where we, didn't think we could fill it with anything else. Like for me, driving. I love listening to podcasts when I'm driving because what else do you do when you're driving? You'll just pop on the radio, listen to some music. So why not share that or fill that space with something that's going to empower you and give you the information that you need? So when I first started listening to podcasts, obviously the first kind of podcast I looked for was a fun, educational podcast that was run by like-minded young teachers who were just wanting to share their passion and their drive and, their enthusiasm for, what we do. And I couldn't really find anything that really suited me or what I really wanted to listen to. So in my mind, I was like, oh, maybe I should start a podcast. But then I was just like, well, who's going to listen to me? Who's going to, want to hear me in their ears all day long? So I kind of just pushed it out and never really thought about it. But then I kind of got to a point where I was just like, I'm going to do it. Because what have I got to lose? 10 people could listen and really enjoy what I'm saying. 5 people could listen. 2 people, 1 person. Nobody could listen. But at least I know that I have shared what I would like to share. And I have tried to create and empower teachers with knowledge and with a really safe environment for us to collaborate, for us to think together, because that is exactly what I would like to do. I would like to create an environment of teachers where we can share our frustrations, we can shed some tears, we can laugh, we can joke, we can have an environment where everybody feels like they are listened to and they are heard. And empowering teachers with information that, the education system doesn't necessarily think we need, but is so important for us to have. So, this is why I want to bring on guests and have people here to share their experiences and their opinions and their knowledge, because the only way we are going to empower ourselves to become better teachers, to become better people within our classrooms, is to empower ourselves with knowledge, so that we know that when we step into that classroom every day, we are doing everything we can to create a safe, loving environment for those little people who walk through our doors. I hope you enjoyed this introduction into what the Chatty Teachers Podcast will be. We will be kicking off this season with a really exciting podcast all about understanding inclusive education, and a couple of tips and tricks that we will explore and how you can implement it into your classroom. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope to see you back here every week. Have an absolutely magical week. See you soon. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Chatty Teachers Podcast. If you enjoyed it and you would like to keep listening, please make sure to check back in next week or connect with us over on Instagram. We are an independent podcast, so a review would be absolutely amazing. Please follow on whichever streaming platform you use to keep in touch and to keep updated.